When I first started bear hunting, I had the shop back here at the house back then, and I was skinning a bear in a shop, and it was bear season, and I hadn't had a chance to hunt yet. And I had checked the apple orchard about a week earlier, and there was a lot of bear droppings in the apple orchard, so I knew the bear were working it. And it was too late, I didn't want to disturb any bait sites, so I said, I'll just go check the apple orchard out to see if there's any bear there. So I found a couple nice trails coming into the apple orchard. I was in an apple tree, and I was in the cross of the apple tree, and my feet were about 4 feet off the ground. So I'm waiting there maybe 20 minutes, and I thought I heard something to my left, nothing, and then I thought I heard something to my right, and I look over, and there's a bear coming in. And he's coming in, and he's coming in, and he come in right at the foot of my tree, and all of a sudden he started getting up the tree. And I don't know if he was getting up the apple tree to check for apples, or he seen that big blob and he was checking me out. When his head got above my boots, he picked me up, he winded me. So I see his ears lay down, and he was like maybe 8-10 feet away, and he turned around, and I just drew back, and I nailed him about 8-10 feet away. He was real close to me. All I hunt with is a longbow. They're black as coal. They're like ghosts. They show up, you don't even hear them. They get pads on their feet. They can sneak up behind you and never know they're there. All this is a stick and a string. Follow the bear.
Maine has the largest wilderness areas east of the Mississippi. Black bears are everywhere, but in the forest they are evasive, nearly impossible to see among 10 million unfenced acres. On occasion, a 700-pound bear will visit a backyard. Nestled in a hollow, Portage Lake is only 39 miles from the border. This little hamlet shares much with Canada. The land is immersed in Acadian lifestyle, and for hundreds of years, the culture of the St. John Valley has reigned supreme. For 30 of those years, Eldon Jandreau has practiced his unique skills in the sparsely populated village.
First of all, I'm French and I talk fast. And people tell me that all the time, but it's not that I talk fast. Everybody listens slow. So that's what the big problem is.
Much of northern New England's culture embraces hunting as a necessity. Outdoor lifestyle is a blessing, however unglamorous the challenge. Longbow hunting is relevant to the survival of man on our planet.
All this is a stick and a string, no sights, no release aid. Traditional as they get.
What drew us to this man from Maine? Eldon Jandreau is known to longbow hunters across America.
I shoot a traditional bow, it's a longbow, and I've been shooting it basically all my life, and I learned to shoot it. I practice time and time again, thousands, maybe millions of arrows possibly over the last 30 years.
Eldon became Maine's first master bow hunter.
Nobody at that time had killed a bear, deer, or moose, the three big game animals in the state of Maine. And I did it all in about 10 days.
The first person to successfully hunt all three big game animals, moose, bear, and deer, with a longbow and a single arrow for each hunt.
I myself usually only carry one arrow with me because I feel that I probably won't get the second opportunity once you shoot at one. But once in a while I'll bring two arrows, and most of the time I just try to bring one arrow because you're not going to get more than one shot in an evening anyway.
Eldon Jandreau is known affectionately as Longbow.
I've been teased my whole life. I got a good friend of mine, he's well known in the archery field, in the traditional field, Gene Wenzel. He came hunting with me, and it was a lot of snow on the ground, so usually back then I used to carry a back quiver, and my back quiver would get full of snow and the arrows would be all wet, so you couldn't use them anyway. So that day I went tracking, I brought one arrow with me. And when I tracked the deer down, probably took me 2.5 hours. I tracked him maybe 2.5 to 3 miles, and I spotted him about 32 yards away, and I shot him, and I had a good hit on him. And I come out of the woods, and the game warden, Jim Dumont, now he actually works for me now as one of the guides.
Yeah, I've known Longbow for about 31 years, and it's funny you mentioned that. One of the first times that I ran across him when I was game warden here in this district, Eldon had shot a 200-pound buck.
He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm hunting deer." And he said, "Well, where are your arrows?" I said, "Well, I just brought one."
All he had was his bow, and I said, "Eldon, where's your arrows?" "Oh, I only use one."
He said, "What do you mean?" Well, I said, "I only got to have one shot."
And he tracked this buck in the Maine woods and shot it with one arrow. That's how good he is.
So when my friend came up that year, he hunted moose with me, and he got a nice moose with a bow, and he invited me back to Montana. And he says, you know, come hunt whitetail in the Milk River with me, and I can put you on some nice whitetail. So, like I said, I like to hunt whitetail more than anything, so I did. And he said, hey, we'll spend a day hunting elk too for one day. He says, so bring 2 arrows just in case you go hunt elk too.
As a guide, his customers come to hunt, and by choice, many leave without shooting.
Most of my hunters are bow hunters, so to them the success is just seeing the bear. Because most bow hunters don't have to kill. If they see something, they're happy. So what happens with bow hunting, a lot of customers will call me and say, what's your success ratio? And I really don't like to get into it, because some people measure success on how much you kill, and we don't do that. We measure on how much fun you had, how many animals you've seen, did you have a good time, did you enjoy the hunt?
Seasonal camp owners along the lake pay high taxes, generating municipal income. But the Portage Lake economy rests with guides like Eldon, who advertise their service nationally and spark an economic engine that benefits everyone in this community.
With Eldon's outfit here in Portage Lake, if we wouldn't have that, this town would be dead.
I take in usually anywhere from 50 to 75 bear hunters a year.
Eldon brings a lot of money to this town, you know, as far as the restaurants, stores, gas, license sales, and camp rentals. Very, very important to the town of Portage Lake. I mean, if we wouldn't have Eldon here in town with his hunters, we wouldn't have nothing.
And I meet people from all walks of life. And this year was pretty neat, because we had a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old shoot their first black bear in Maine. So it was pretty good all in the same week.
This wilderness aficionado relates to the need to harvest Maine's huge black bear population. Unchecked and unmanaged, black bears in most wilderness towns would be more populous than taxpayers.
I believe the population is around 28 to 32,000 in the state of Maine.
State law regulates every aspect of how big game is hunted. Even bear baiting is highly regulated.
Maine has just a fall black bear hunt. The season starts for 4 weeks, like I said, prior to September 1st. It's the first Monday prior to September 1st, and runs 4 weeks straight for baiting only.
Although not without controversy, harvesting black bear over bait remains the only proven manner by which to successfully manage increasing numbers.
We do it over bait, and there's a big controversy about baiting bears, but it's something that's needed in northern Maine. The woods are so thick that if you didn't bait them, you would never see them, and they need to be harvested. If you didn't harvest them, you would have a problem with nuisance bear. We do already, and we harvest 3,200 to 4,000 bears a year here in Maine.
And when Eldon baits, he baits heavily.
I've been doing this for about 27 years, and I think the secret to my success is that I bait fairly heavy. What happens in northern Maine, 75% of your bear population here is in Worcester County. And a lot of times you have more than one bear working each bait site. You have multiple bears. So it takes a lot of bait to keep these bears coming in. You don't want to put just 5 gallons at a time, because a small bear will come in and clean up most of the bait, and the bigger bears will have nothing for them to eat. Their whole goal all summer long is to fatten up for the hibernation.
But bait assures opportunities to harvest bear, which can't be accomplished by simply walking through the forest.
Many times we see sightings of 2 bears to 14 bears at one bait site in one night, and that's what we see. How many that you don't see? I tell many of my customers that, you know, we have 2 to 7 bears working each bait site, and I think that's very true, because I bait so heavy, we have multiple bears coming in.
But before Eldon can set down even one bait barrel, he needs to acquire permits, another large cost right up front.
I have about 65 bait sites on North Maine woods, and I also have about 11, I believe, on Irving land. And then I have about 19 on private land. On North Maine woods in Irving, I have to pay $100 a bait site each year, and those sites are renewable every year as long as you keep them clean and pay your bill every year. They'll honor renewing the same bait sites every year.
After acquiring the permits, Eldon must also obtain the bait. A full semi of donuts and grease. Helping one another is very much a part of the rural ethic, especially in the more remote settlements. Many helper hunters commented that people back home wouldn't believe their morning was spent storing donuts. Jim, a game warden who guides for Longbow, helped orchestrate what was to become a fast but very careful offloading and storing effort. Beginning at 6:30 a.m., the system created itself. Over 14 people knew how to streamline the effort.
This here is what really justifies the cost of a hunt, because you know, when you have to start paying a big tractor trailer truck to haul, you know, 400 miles of bait up here in this vast wilderness, and then you're trying to unload all these barrels in here. I mean, you know, it's just, you're collecting it all year long. I mean, that's a large cost.
And this delivery isn't even half of what he'll use this year.
How many of these you got? 100. Only 100?
Only 93 left. I use an average of 200 to 250 55-gallon drums a year. It's very important to bait heavy to keep multiple bears coming in so the hunters have multiple opportunities.
Longbow was fortunate this season. When last year's donut delivery arrived, Longbow offloaded over 100 300-pound barrels by himself.
You know what this is, Eldon?
This one right here.
That's his frosting. That's his frosting. Sure? Yeah. Special glaze.
Special glaze. That's
frosting.
The air smelled like a bakery.
Just went like that, and I'm like, yeah, looks like donuts.
Tim Fayant from Vermont, he's a good friend of mine, and he had multiple bears at his bait site.
7 bear last night on stand.
And what happens is there's so much activity that the bears think that you're just another bear.
And I was a little bit on the edge getting out because they didn't want to go away when I get out.
They have no idea that it's another human there until you come down to the tree. And even then, unless they smell you, they think it's so much bear activity, so you have to be very careful. They're very aggressive and very competitive over the bait site.
I didn't dare leave my stand I left at 8 o'clock. And I had one chewing on the strap, holding my stand up on the tree pegs coming up. He's at the base of the tree just chewing on the straps. I'm clinking on the chain to tell him, you know, to spook him off. He's just looking at me like it doesn't matter. And the next thing you know, they're coming in. He was chasing them off. They were all around me.
How big was he?
The one that was in there by the bait was probably 140 pounds. It was a smaller one, but I don't know if there was a mother on the outskirts with her cubs just kind of keeping them
We'll find it.
away.
You're right, maybe Kim Paul.
Hair was up on the back of my neck big time. Big time. If I had a gun with me, something that goes bang, it's a little bit different to scare him off, but hey,
Just had a bow?
just my bow, yeah. So I dropped everything down and tucked my tail between my legs and motored on out. No
Is this
big
something you
deal.
saw on TV?
I've seen it happen before.
But little did they know that less than 12 hours before, in that exact spot, stood a 700-pound black bear. When the semi is finally unloaded, the work is really just beginning.
I collect donuts and grease year-round, so it's a year-round job. And then you have to put it out there by hand, so it's a lot of physical work.
Longbow has become a somewhat mythical Paul Bunyan of hunting. He loves the challenge of hunting bear over bait and is not daunted by the 4-season preparation involved.
I tell everybody I've been retired for 30 years because I'm doing something I really enjoy doing. It's like a big hobby for me. And some of them I don't think realize how much work's involved, and when they see it then they realize that it's not all peaches and cream. There's a lot of hard work involved in it, you know.
The cost and physical exertion of maintaining over 100 bear bait locations is mind-boggling and never-ending.
Never take a day off. You know, it takes me all day usually to do 30, 33 of them. And what I do is I do it on a 3-day basis. It takes me about 3 days to do them all, then I start all over again prior to when the bear hunters come up.
What kind of grease is that?
Fry-lated grease. They're used in the restaurants for French fries and clams and scallops, whatever they fry up. That really gets them fattened up for the wintertime. I lay it down so the rain don't get into it. and it protects it from the rain and washing it all away.
Almost single-handedly, Longbow Jandreau has scouted out trails and identified bait locations months before the arrival of any hunter.
Hey, can you imagine? This is just one of them, Jeremy. Can you imagine 93 of them, how much work is involved in it? I've got places that are a lot worse than this.
Bait barrels are scattered across miles of bare domain.
Some of them are 28 miles away, some are 5 miles away, some are 2 miles away, but usually they're at least a mile apart. And sometimes they're further than that, but I like to have them at least a mile apart. And sometimes you get 2 or 3 bears working 2 or 3 baits, but there's so many bears up here that I don't have a problem with putting them a mile apart. I feel that a lot of the bait sites have 2 to 4 bears working each bait site.